All right, guys, so the MLB trade deadline is less than a week away. It is on August 2nd, and there's going to be a lot of fireworks happening this deadline, just like with every deadline. And what could be more fun than making some wild, bold, any kind of prediction we can about what trades might go down during this deadline. So what I have done, guys, is I have come up with one trade that every current playoff team should make. Okay, I know this PowerPoint, I'm sorry it says every MLB team. It's really every MLB playoff team, every contender technically, because if you're a playoff team, you're a contender. So I've come up with one trade I think each team should make. A lot of hot candidates at the deadline will be involved with these trades. Not everyone though, not some of the hot commodities. They might not be included here, but also I additionally want to preface that some of these trades are going to be bold, out there. They're gonna be weird ones. You're gonna probably disagree with me with at least a couple of these, but that's the fun part about it. It's more about just kind of thinking about what needs a team has positionally and just kind of filling in a player that could maybe fill in that void that a team needs. I think that's more important than the actual player, but it's still fun to have bold predictions. And guys, definitely comment where you think each player can, should, and will go. And with that being said, guys, we're going to do this every playoff team. We're going to start with the American League, with the best team in the AL. So we're going to start with David Robertson to the Yankees. Now, as I'm making this video, literally a few minutes before, breaking news is that the Yankees are going to acquire Andrew Benintendi. So that was one thing I thought that the Yankees needed for sure, a good lefty batter, because Joey Gallo sucks. And Matt Carpenter has been a great revelation for them, but he's probably due for some regression. And then Anthony Rizzo's good, but they just needed some lefty batter help and someone who could hit for a high average like Benintendi, so that's a great trade for them. But especially now that they have that covered, they could use some bullpen help, because Aroldis Chapman has been super disappointing. Michael King, who was great for them, is now out for the year. And Clay Holmes is a great closer, but they could use a setup guy, a high leverage 7th and 8th inning guy. So why not David Robertson, who's had a surprisingly great year with the Cubs, and the Cubs are going to be sellers. David Robertson's in his 30s. He was once a Yankee, so he'll fit in just fine. He's had roles where he hasn't been a closer, but has still been really good as a high leverage reliever. So I think he'd be a really good fit for the Yankees. Big strikeout guy. Then we move on to the Astros, and if I'm being honest with you guys, I actually had Andrew Benintendi to the Astros as kind of my bold prediction, but now that he's a Yankee, I had to change it up last minute. So we're going to go with Ian Happ. Now, Ian Happ is a Cub. Sellers, right? David Robertson, right? They're going to trade Willson, Contreras in all likelihood. The Astros, they're doing really well this year, as they do every year, but this year, they're mainly a pitching dominant team, obviously with Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, good bullpen. Their pitching has kind of led the way for them. Their hitting's been good with a few of their players, obviously with Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Altuve, but their hitting's been a little bit worse than it is most years, and they could use some offense in their outfield. Right now, Chas McCormick, Jake Myers, those guys are getting playing time while Michael Brantley's injured. I think Ian Happ, still a pretty young player, he's going to turn 28 in a couple weeks, and I think this is a good place for him. He's not going to feel the pressure of needing to be a great player. He can maybe hit lower in the order, still be effective, doesn't need to play every single day, but he could just be a good player that can play in the infield, play in the outfield, a good offensive player, above average offensive player that could help the Astros, I think, in the long run, and he's not going to have to feel that pressure of, he doesn't have to be a great player, just effective. So I think, and the Astros aren't going to go all in on a superstar or anything, as far as I know, who knows. But then we have the Twins, who are surprisingly winning the AL Central, and I am going to predict Frankie Montas, the A's highly touted starting pitcher, going to the Twins, because the Twins, they're surprising a lot of us by being the front, winning the AL Central right now, being ahead in first place. But Joe Ryan is a really good pitcher. Sonny Gray's very solid, but after that, this rotation's questionable. Chris Archer probably isn't a great third pitcher. They could use some starting pitching help. Frankie Montas is having a great year despite playing on the A's, and he's only going to get better if he goes to the Twins. He stays in the American League. I just think it makes a lot of sense. He has another year of team control, and the Twins, they have a lot to play for this year, obviously. They're a playoff team right now, obviously, by being the first place team in the weak AL Central, but nevertheless still winning their division, so you know they're going to bye. Then we have the Blue Jays, who I also think need starting pitching help. So I'm going with Jose Quintana to the Blue Jays. The Pirates are another selling team. And Jose Quintana is the perfect blueprint for a one-year deal veteran player that the Pirates will be so excited, will be totally content with trading because he's more valuable than he was at the beginning of the year. He's been very effective most of the year, kind of regressed recently, was much better in the beginning of the year. And I don't think the Blue Jays are going to want to go all in for a pitcher. They're just going to try to get one more solid pitcher. Alek Manoah is obviously a legit ace. Then you have Kevin Gausman. But then after that, they could use a good left-handed pitcher with Hyun-Jin Ryu struggling a lot, and then Yusei Kikuchi struggling, and Ross Stripling. They don't really have a great third pitcher. So I don't think they're going to go crazy all in, but they're going to look for some solid pitching, and I think Quintana makes sense. Then the Mariners, I have Brandon Drury to the Mariners. Brandon Drury is kind of like Jose Quintana in that when the Reds signed him, they probably didn't think he was going to attract a lot of trade deadline value, but Brandon Drury, the utility man, has had an absolute breakout year. 19 homers. I think the Mariners could use some offense. They could use a super utility guy who can play around the infield, maybe play in the outfield, and the Mariners could use some additional pop, a little more offense. Obviously, Julio Rodriguez is great, but they could use a little bit more depth in that lineup, and you can play Drury anywhere, like I said. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and the Reds would be thrilled. Obviously, they're going to sell. They're going to be trading a lot of players, I think, as you will see. So I think the Reds would be so excited. I think they'd be excited to get at least some prospect back for Drury. They probably didn't expect that. Then we have, I have Garrett Cooper to the Rays. Now, the Rays, this is the most typical Tampa Bay Rays move that you will ever see. Garrett Cooper, not the sexiest player, but I think the Marlins, I don't think they're going to go with a complete overhaul of the Marlins. I just think they're going to maybe trade off a couple players, like Garrett Cooper, a rock-solid hitter, career 280 hitter right around there. I think the Rays could use some offense. Their pitching is very good, obviously, with Shane McClanahan, and they find all these budget pieces to their bullpen and starting rotation. So I think their pitching's fine. I think their offense needs help, especially in the outfield. Other than Randy Arozarena, I mean, we're talking about Josh Lowe, Harold Ramirez, Luke Raley in the outfield. They could use some offense. Garrett Cooper plays first base, but he can also play in the outfield. They could use that that boost to their team batting average, which is kind of bottom 10 right now in baseball. So I think he's a good budget move for the Rays and a very effective player, and I think the Rays could best use his services, in my opinion. So then we move on to the National League. This one's out there, guys. I gotta be honest. Joe Mantiply to the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers, as a Dodger fan, I know this up close and personally. The Dodgers have been in on a lot of players. People talking about them needing starting pitching help. Maybe they're in on Juan Soto. Maybe Garrett Cooper. I've heard different rumors. But I think the Dodgers are fine with starting pitching. I mean, we're talking about Kershaw, Urias, Gonsolin, right? These are 3-star, all-star level players. Then Tyler Anderson's been a revelation. Andrew Heaney when he's healthy. And they're probably going to get Walker Buehler back. So I think they're just fine with their starting pitching. And I think the best thing they can use is some relief help, specifically a lefty reliever, because their front of the line left-handed pitcher, their highest leverage lefty is probably Alex Vesia right now, and Joe Mantiply's in his 30s. The Diamondbacks, I don't think they're going to go with a complete overhaul, but I think they could sell a couple players. Joe Mantiply's value is at its all-time highest right now, a guy that's not part of their future plans. He was an all-star this year, a really good lefty. Obviously, the question is, with the D-backs and Dodgers being division rivals, would the D-backs consider trading Joe Mantiply? But I think if the Dodgers offer even one decent prospect, couple middle-of-the-line solid prospects, the D-backs might go for it. Mantiply's value is at its all-time highest. I think for that reason they'd go for it. And the Dodgers could really use a lefty reliever, I think. And I think this trade makes a lot of sense. Will it happen? Will the D-backs... Is Joe Mantiply even on the trading block? I think he should be, but I'm not sure if he actually is. But that's my trade to the Dodgers. Then we have this next one. Willson Contreras to the Mets. This makes all the sense in the world. The Mets, they don't really have a good offensive catcher. Tomas Nido, he's decent. He's a good defender, but he's just decent. James McCann is coming back from injury soon, but he's kind of not the offensive catcher he once was. Willson Contreras is one of the top commodities at the trade deadline, almost certainly getting traded, and that standing ovation he got at Wrigley is kind of the full indication of that. And him going to the Mets just makes too much sense. Mets, legit contender, obviously. They could use a really good offensive boost at catcher, and Willson Contreras, one of the best offensive catchers and catchers in general we have, makes too much sense. Him to the Mets makes a lot of sense. This next one, Bryan Reynolds to the Brewers. Guys, it's another one. I warned you. It's out there. I have some bold trades. Why would the Pirates trade a player that's only 27 years old, trade him to another team in their division, a division rival like the Brewers? Well, I think the Brewers are kind of like the Rays of the NL. They win because of their pitching. Their starting pitching's obviously great with Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta's coming back soon. Josh Hader's had his struggles, but he's still great. Devin Williams, lockdown bullpen for the most part. They could use offensive help, specifically outfield help, center field help. Tyrone Taylor, not a very good offensive player. Bryan Reynolds has 3 more years of team control on the Pirates, but I think the Brewers, they should try to do something big. Why not? They need an offensive boost. I think the reason why they didn't, go past the divisional round last year, lost to the Braves, was because they're hitting, it's sluggish sometimes. It's not that good. They could use that center field boost. I think they should go all in, get Bryan Reynolds. If they offer something good to the Pirates, why not have the Pirates go for it? They could use center field help, and Bryan Reynolds, I think, will help them for the long haul, potentially. So why not? Then we have the Braves, Michael Fulmer to the Braves. Now, the reason why I like this deal is because the Tigers, super disappointing, so I think they're going to be selling some players. The Braves are a pretty complete team. I think them and the Dodgers are probably the 2 most complete teams in the NL roster-wise. Braves have really good starting pitching, good bullpen for the most part, and really good hitters, obviously, so there's not too much they need. But I think Michael Fulmer is a good, solid, under-the-radar trade they can make. They could use a little bit of righty relief help. I think their best relievers, obviously Kenley, their closer, is righty, but they have a couple really good lefties in there. I think with Tyler Matzik and AJ Minter, they're just fine in terms of lefty relievers. Michael Fulmer could be a good setup guy, relatively high leverage guy who's having a really good last 2 seasons with the Tigers. And I think the Braves can get him for not too crazy of a package. He's a good, solid, little bit under the radar, not going to make crazy headlines type of move, but the type of moves like this is one of those moves that can make a big difference in the playoffs. A bullpen, you can never have too much pitching. Add to your bullpen, why not? So then, this is the big one, guys. Juan Soto. What do you think about this? Juan Soto to the Padres. Now, Juan Soto, realistically, you could argue every contender is in on Juan Soto. Why wouldn't you be? I think he's the best hitter in baseball. He's only 23 years old. We know the headlines. We know everything surrounding Juan Soto. Who would not want to have this generational type of talent? I've heard the Cardinals are front runners. I've heard rumors of the Dodgers. I've heard the Mariners. That would be interesting, by the way. Mariners, Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto. Could you imagine that? And everyone, I guess, has a chance. But to me, the Padres are desperately in need of some offensive firepower, especially in the outfield. I feel like with Nando Tatis being hurt this entire season, Manny Machado's really had to carry that offense, and their pitching is the reason why they're a playoff team right now, much more than their offense. They could use Juan Soto. They have the prospects to make it happen. AJ Preller, their president and GM, has been known to make a lot of bold moves at the deadline. This is the type of move I think it wouldn't be surprising if he tried to make. And I think the Padres have the type of players to make it happen. Maybe the Nationals want Mackenzie Gore and a bunch of top prospects. Maybe they'll want the Padres to take Patrick Corbin off their contract, take his contract, his bad contract. They want the Padres to take his contract from the Nationals. Whatever it takes, I just feel like Juan Soto to the Padres for the future, paired up with Fernando Tatis, that would just be so interesting. It just feels like a good match to me. That's just my opinion. Juan Soto to the Padres. What do you guys think? But next, move on to Luis Castillo to the Phillies. Now, there have been rumors about Luis Castillo to the Cardinals, and I think that's definitely possible to happen, and a lot of teams are in on Luis Castillo. I think he's the best starting pitcher available at this deadline. He's having a great year, despite pitching for the lowly Reds. I'm sorry, Reds fans. But I just think the Reds are going to be hesitant to trade him to a division rival like the Cardinals, so that's why I have the Phillies. Phillies, they're going to do anything and everything it takes to snap this long playoff drought. Philly fans deserve to make the playoffs after all this waiting. Bryce Harper's going to come back eventually, hopefully somewhat soon. But after Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, the Phillies don't really have a really good third, fourth, fifth starting pitcher. So I think Luis Castillo would be a great fit for the Phillies and makes a really good 1-2-3 playoff rotation for the Phillies. It just makes a lot of sense. I think he would be a missing piece for a team that maybe this is the last piece of the puzzle to have a good enough roster to make a deep run in the playoffs. Who knows? The Phillies have a lot of firepower, and I think this is the all-in move they should make to finally at least snap that playoff drought. I really like the idea of Luis Castillo to the Phillies. And last but not least, because the Cardinals and Phillies are tied for the third playoff spot, we're including the Cardinals, and I have Martin Perez to the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I don't know how big or go home they're going to be at the deadline. Martin Perez isn't the sexiest move, but albeit Martin Perez has had a great season, under 3 ERA, and he's not going to cost a lot to get him because the Rangers are going to be they're going to be ecstatic that, just like a few other teams, that Martin Perez, a veteran pitcher that they signed who was once a Ranger a few years ago and was not good, hasn't been that good for most of his career, very average, but this breakout season, despite the fact that it's a breakout season, he's kind of a little bit he's getting up there in age, so he's not going to cost a lot to get, and we don't know how long this period of great pitching will last. So I don't think the Cardinals have to go all in to get him. They don't have to trade too much at all. No top prospects, I don't think. And the Cardinals could definitely use starting pitching help, and a lefty would go a long way because most of the rotation, I believe, is righty with, you have Wainwright and Michaelis. Martin Perez could be a good veteran lefty to be a third member of that pitching staff. I just think it works out well, and I think the Cardinals are going to get a starting pitcher. I don't know exactly who it's going to be, but guys, those are my trade deadline predictions. Again, I think a lot of these will be wrong. They're bold, they're out there, but I think it's more about addressing what I think each team needs and just having fun with some bold predictions that, in my opinion, made sense. But guys, definitely comment, where do you think each player should go? Give me some bold trade deadline predictions. Any predictions you have, I would love to hear them. Guys, like the video if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you're a baseball fan. You haven't done so already. That would be much appreciated. I think you'll like the content on this channel, and I will see you guys in the next video.